Charles, this is one of these rare occurrences in life where today's theme is not only a movie, but also a board game. I'm here in the library with a candlestick, so don't try anything funny.
Yeah, all right. I see your candlestick and I raise you a howitzer.
How are you,
Anyway,
Charles? You
I'm
were
great. I'm great.
overseas
I still am. I
in
still
the
am
great
indeed.
Charles Ortel Presidential Library, broadcasting live into these great United States. How are you tonight, Charles?
And around the world. I'm in good shape. Thanks for having me back on. I think I have a lot to say about this spectacle in the Oval Office and
Unbelievable.
what's going on now. Having been through a divorce, and of course you too have been through divorce, you realize that there's comes a point where you just can't take it any longer. Nobody wants a divorce because it's, especially if you have children, it's a very difficult thing to go through. But I am so over Europe. I mean, I'm so over the collaboration of the Ivy League faculty lounge pinheads, who then go into the Democrat Party, and some rhinos who collaborate with these complete morons, proponents of stifling bureaucracy that has crushed the private sector across Europe, proponents of whack job, anti-science, climate hoax bullshit that has destroyed the German economy. I mean,
Now,
it's
wait
a
a minute,
spectrum.
Charles. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I don't know. I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or perhaps on the correct side of the bed. I mean, I look at this from far away, and I see in Donald Trump and JD Vance two people who are determined to bring not momentary peace for a photo op, but lasting peace as their legacy to future generations. And the United States is in the position now, particularly given the progress made, I think, with Russia, to deliver on that great promise, which very few leaders in America have ever done. So they try to make some progress, and what happens? The allegation is that the proven liar, Susan, um, definitely not white rice, um, you know,
Is that
agitated.
kosher to say?
Well, I mean, she is beyond despicable. Everything that woman has touched in her political career has turned to shit. You know, go back to Clinton. She ignored the Rwanda crisis. We had genocide in Rwanda. You know, you could go. I don't want to spend half an hour on her because she's just not worth 10 seconds of our time. But she apparently, in league with people like Alexander Vindman, query why is he not in prison, um,
Yeah.
and Blinken and some other people got on a phone call allegedly and were bucking Zelensky up prior to this meeting to tell him to, stand strong and do ultimately what he did do in the Oval Office. I'm seeing reports on my X feed that there was a deal struck on the 17th of January in the waning days of the Biden catastrophe. It wasn't an administration, it was a catastrophe, where the UK signed a 100-year deal agreement with Ukraine to commit to assist in rebuilding and also get the rights to exploit natural resource and other assets inside Ukraine. My opening position on all of this is Vladimir Zelensky ceased being the legitimate ruler of Ukraine when he went past his term, suspended elections, started jailing the opposition. There are horrific pictures and videos and stories that are credible coming out of Ukraine showing the degree to which this regime is forcing conscription, dragging people off the street, shaming opponents. There's a video I saw, or maybe it was a still picture I saw, of a Zelensky critic, a woman who was taped to one of those old-fashioned streetlights somewhere in Ukraine with her pants pulled down and her arms, tied together to shame her for criticizing Zelensky. I mean, Zelensky is not somebody that Democrats should be supporting, and certainly is not somebody that I support at this stage. This man is, I don't want to say he's worse than Hitler because he hasn't set up concentration camps yet, but this man is a tyrant, a fool. There it is right there. I mean, if this is true, if this is something that Zelensky's people actually did, then I want all of our money back with penalties and interest. I want the Zelensky and Gitmo. We have to send a clear message to the world that we are not, to the extent we're going to get involved in other countries, we're not in the business of supporting tyrants. But this spectacle of a Biden family enriching itself off the grift in ways we don't yet fully appreciate, of the money that was sent into Ukraine, beginning in whenever that money started flowing. Some say 2014, some say well before that. Politicians on both sides of the aisle, John McCain, Joe Biden, and many others, Lindsey Graham, and many others who have meddled here and elsewhere, and then turned around and gotten money sent back to them either directly or indirectly. This is an outrage, and the full extent of it needs to be known. And to see these ridiculous, I've never been to Estonia. I hear it's really nice. And I'll slaughter the woman's names. It's something like Kaja Kallas or something like that. Who the fuck does that bitch think she is? Right? Does
Who
Estonia
is she? NATO somebody?
She's I think EU foreign minister or something. She's got some fancy title, and she's telling us, what we're going to do. And Sir Keir Starmer, who has yet to explain what he was doing in the UK when all that grooming was going on, and still is going on in the UK. Sir Keir Starmer is going to dictate to us, the United States, what we're going to do going forward in vis-a-vis Ukraine. Enough of this bullshit.
I agree with you, Charles. That was particularly objectionable to me, how he positioned it, that the United States had some duty to do this because England wanted to or Europe wanted to. I was like, hey, shut up. Right. We don't have to do that.
I like traveling to Europe. I think it's interesting. I think the history is interesting, but I also think we need to learn from history. Europe, the vaunted leadership of Europe in its present incarnation, its historical past, brought us World War I and World War II, and is now trying to push us into World War III. Fuck that bullshit. Okay? We have seen in Zelensky, he is not a legitimate president. No deal that you sign with him is going to last once he leaves, because the Ukrainians are going to want to renegotiate it, and validly so. So there is no deal to be done with Zelensky. There need to be free and fair elections in Ukraine, but not before the full extent of the grift is known. The Ukrainian people deserve to know who inside their country and outside their country have been cashing in on this destruction that has leveled Ukraine into the dirt. They need to understand it. Once they understand it, they can put new leadership in. I am not in favor, and I'm not the President of the United States, but I'm not in favor of the United States getting paid back by exploiting the natural resources of a country. That is not the direction we should be going in. If there are deals to be done in Ukraine to make investments, let investors make those deals. Our government shouldn't be an investor in Ukraine. This is ridiculous. Now,
I agree with that. It just seems like sticking around longer, getting embedded longer. If there is some skirmish, it's immediate military action. Just dump it, leave it.
Right. And we need to just have a clear distinction between what the government is trying to do and what investors are trying to do. Investors like me, who decided to invest in Malaysia, I'm not relying on the U.S. government to protect my investment in Malaysia. I made a decision. I want to take this risk. I'm not going to give the government a share of my profits
Trump was bumping Bitcoin earlier. Did you see that?
Yeah. But we'll talk about that. But let's just stay for a second on on Ukraine and this mess. What we face here, and I had an interview with Katya Blanova in Sputnik that just went up several hours ago. The United States right now needs to forget about negotiating with Zelensky, and needs to put the NATO allies on notice that we will not defend any NATO ally if they instigate war with Russia now. Not one. This is a slimy, Norm Eisen, Andrew Weissman workaround of our obligations to try to trick us into a place where we have to fight Russia. Right. We are not doing that. And if Trump goes down this path, he won't last in office very long. This is not so. There is no reason that our sons and daughters should be fighting Russia over the mess that Europeans and the Biden people and the Obama people and the Bush people have made in Ukraine. There is no reason for that. There are
Can Trump
plenty of
just can Trump just say U.S. is leaving NATO as president, or he needs Congress to say that?
he can certainly decrease our military footprint, which Hegseth has just announced that we're doing in a meaningful way in Europe. I think, this is maybe we're back in 1945 where Europe is ruined again if we continue down this path. But we have had 80 years of investment in Europe. Many European countries are very wealthy. They're producing large outputs. A lot of it's all mumbo jumbo, borrowing to bloat the public sector while you crush the private sector. But there's a lot of wealth in Europe, in particular in Switzerland, and that wealth needs to defend itself, right? And what we're seeing now is we cannot trust the Europeans. In particular, why I'm so agitated here is that the second you consent to having no free speech, you are in a tyranny. You got to remember that across Europe, a lot of the Europeans are not allowed to own weapons, to own guns. So you take away your guns, you take away your free speech, you're in tyranny land. You're in a tyranny where fools like Zelensky and fools like Starmer and fools like Macron, Emmanuel Macron, how I married my brother. I mean, and Olaf Schutz or whatever that guy's name who was leading.
Didn't he get fired?
Yeah, but this is not Justin Castro Trudeau's, spending his last few days
too. It's like the best season of The Apprentice yet.
We're not doing any of that. We're not doing any of that. And I think Trump, he's got a big speech that's coming out, I guess, to Congress in a couple of days here on the
Tuesday.
4th, I think. Tuesday, yeah. So let's hear what he has to say on the subject. But this is a monumental fuck up on Zelensky's part and on the part of all the traitors to this country who've been enriching themselves off regime change approaches around the world. This is a disaster. On the positive side, Secretary Rubio is on fire. Hegseth is on fire. Bessent is on fire. And somebody who's in a dumpster fire, I think, is Pam Bondi, who, look, I mean, it's not like questions about Epstein and Kennedy and Martin Luther King and the Clinton Foundation and charity fraud. It's not like these things just came up, a couple of days ago. These are festering questions. Trump promised in 2020 on the way out the door that he would release a number of these files. He was stymied. The incoming attorney general had to know, through her confirmation hearing, she had to know that this was a major issue. You cannot, when you lay down deadlines and you say this is a firm deadline, 8 a.m. Friday morning, you got to do X, Y, and Z, and that doesn't happen. If you let that slide, you have no credibility, not simply with the American people, but with all the criminals who must be wondering, should they be worried about being prosecuted? They see her flub like this. They see her go on Fox News and talk smack. They see her blocking Laura Loomer on X, which is an absurd thing for the Attorney General to be doing. This person does not, in my opinion, have the caliber and the guts of a Matt Gaetz. That's the kind of person we need as Attorney General. And unless she does, a miraculous change between now and Monday morning at 8 a.m., she's done.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump cannot have 3 strikes and you're out. He had a William Jefferson Sessions was I don't know what
Barr
and now Barr and now this whiff. It is not complicated. The FBI has vault files. We've been through them. The FBI is supposed to put all evidence on these investigations into the Sentinel system. If there's evidence that's not in the system that they have, there's a problem. And more experienced people than you or than I will understand how to get to the bottom of this problem. With AI, with today, there is absolutely no excuse for Pam Bondi to get up and say, the files are on my desk, and then I've been through them, they're horrific, then release shit that's already been out in the public domain for a long time. That was an own goal. If she's going to blame it on the SDNY people, I don't care if there are 10,000 of them. I think there are only like 800 or 900. Fire every last one of them. Bill Clinton fired every U.S. attorney.
But wait a minute, Charles. How did she not know about that? She was obviously lying when she was hyping it up like it was some kind of, Public Enemy concert.
Lying or doing a skimming job on her, running her job surface level. I mean, people like Hegseth. I love the fact he's a younger guy, but I love the fact that in his various trips, he flies to Europe. He lands at 2:00 in the morning. He doesn't go to sleep. He goes out to the
he's
barracks
doing calisthenics with them,
with these people, and he's getting into his job. Marco Rubio went right the fuck down to Panama, went here, went there, and he means business. He doesn't need note cards. He doesn't need binders and influencers. He gets up there and he gets into these issues. Pam Bondi is not doing that. And I'm sorry, she is in the hot seat, in my view. And we've got to understand, look, if Epstein was involved working with our own intelligence agencies and the agencies of other governments, shame on us. The second he crossed the line of going after children across state lines, the second he did that, he then, if we were involved, he implicated the U.S. and gutted our credibility. That is outrageous.
That's why the FBI doesn't want to share any of this evidence, I believe.
But fine, but we all. It's not like the only person the few people who probably believe that Epstein killed himself include Jasmine, no rocket in her pocket Crockett, Maxine Doofus Waters, and Dumbo AOC. I mean, those
Who
are
said
probably
the
the only
moon was made of gas or whatever she said?
Yeah, or that Hank guy who said that some island's going to flip over.
I think that lady died, didn't she?
Did she? Yeah, you're right. You're right. That lady died. I mean, these are people who don't have a single IQ point. Forget about 100. They don't have one. Nobody believes Epstein killed himself. Nobody.
I don't even think he's dead, Charles. The pictures we saw in the New York Post, the schnoz, it doesn't look like Epstein at all. It's some other dead person on the gurney, and Epstein is who knows where.
Right. The whole Epstein story doesn't hang together. And many other stories don't hang together. So we were promised in the election, the files are going to be released day one. Today, where I am, is March 3rd. It's March 2nd, I guess, where you are. But I mean, that's not day one. And if it is the case that SDNY thinks it's, quote, the sovereign nation, that it doesn't report to anyone, well, let's get into that. I would have sent, if that had happened to me, that the instant I realized that was not the whole file, I would first, anybody who was involved preparing that file and giving it to me, I would fire them, every single person in my office. And then I would have said, I would have called the president, and I would have said, listen, we have a serious problem, and I want the right to send whatever we need by way of force and lock down the SDNY office.
Right.
Lock it down.
Army or whatever.
Nobody leaves. Nobody touches that. No computer can be touched. So you can't bleach with anything. And then go in there, go to the room where those files are, or the place where those files are, and then, have, before I got there, every single person on that case put into a conference room.
See, but then Charles, you're describing what you would do. Don't you also agree that the fact that they haven't done this shows that they aren't serious about solving this problem and basically will not?
Well, I don't know that they haven't done it is the issue. So I don't know what's happened. That's
You'd hear about that if their army was rolling up on the SDNY down here.
Maybe. I just don't know what they've done. But and I'm not going to give up on the idea that we're going to get into this, because the Epstein saga goes back so long. Lots have been written about it. Right. Any assessment of of Epstein is going to have many, many legs to it. We have the case with Ghislaine Maxwell, the appeal. There's a lot of information, and I don't think they can destroy everything.
But don't you think if they were serious, instead of having this basically PR event with social media influencers. Why didn't she just have a press conference and say, hey, we're indicting James Comey, we're indicting Hillary Clinton, we're indicting Benjamin Wittes, we're indicting any number of people who we already have a ton of evidence about. Oh, and by the way, here's this website with all this Jeffrey Epstein evidence that we have. If you see anything in here that's new, send an email to this address. People would be like, damn, that lady is serious.
Right. And, there's somebody who got their facts wrong who was bragging that, Pam Bondi is the first female attorney general. I believe the first one was Janet Reno. Yeah, Janet Reno, who was, a drunken lesbian. And pretty much, I think Hillary was effectively the attorney general of the United States. But, so Pam is not the first female. That's not, and even if she were, that's one. Maybe she is the first 100%.
Actually female, right?
Yeah, but so this is a serious problem and I think it's risen to the level, maybe not yet in the United States, but by tomorrow, your time, Monday, your time, it will have risen to the level where Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance and Donald Trump need to address this. If you do not control SDNY, because there's a rogue group in there in league with former Democrats and current Democrats still in there, and you've got all these judges. You this cannot be allowed to happen. This is an actual, I would argue, insurrection. They are challenging the authority of the legitimately elected president of the United States, and this needs to be addressed pronto.
Oh, just briefly, Charles, I wanted to tell you, while you were discussing this before, I asked ChatGPT if the president could pull the United States out of NATO, or does he need Congress? And it says the president likely has the authority to withdraw the United States from NATO without needing congressional approval.
Right.
But the issue is legally unsettled. The key considerations, according to this, are treaty withdrawal precedents. The United States Constitution requires Senate approval to enter a treaty, but it does not explicitly state how the U.S. can exit one. Historically, presidents have withdrawn from treaties unilaterally without congressional approval, such as President Carter withdrawing from the Taiwan Defense Treaty in 1979 and President Trump pulling out of the INF Treaty in 2019. So Trump could just fire NATO, because you're right, they are trying to.
And then what I would turn around and I'd do, and I'd say, we'll forget we'd fire NATO. I don't know what we do with the EU if we have a treaty with that.
Well, it says you need to give it a year's notice. It's like a goddamn co-op board. Sorry.
Which, for NATO?
It says the NATO Article 13 of the North Atlantic Treaty allows members to withdraw with 1 year's notice after notifying the alliance.
So I do that. Give them 1 year's notice. It's our intent to withdraw.
It's like canceling your cable or something. They're like, oh, we're going to charge it.
So that's on the one hand, we'll withdraw, but I withdraw our troops faster.
Yeah. No, right. And I would do all that.
Yeah. And as for I wouldn't abandon Italy, Poland,
good food,
Slovakia. You saw that Slovakia stood up and said, forget this, we're not sending any more money to Ukraine. And I think the leader of Slovakia, didn't he survive an assassination attempt?
I don't know.
I think
we've only got a little bit of time here before we make our way over to the First Amendment Forum, but we're going to continue this conversation. I hope that people will join us. Odyssey has extended their use of normal credit cards so people can still support the show by going to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, as little as $3 a month plus a 58-cent Odyssey fee. And, they're changing to something, but they haven't been very clear about what that's going to be. Also, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's still a lot to be discussed about Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Zelensky. Stay with us, everybody.